Hello, everyone, and welcome to this third edition for this month of the Octopus 101. My name is John Bristowe. I'm the community director here at Octopus Deploy. Thank you for your time and attention joining us today. I do realize that we had a slight snafu in terms of our timing with this. I think time zones played a part in here. The original time was listed as different. It was an hour earlier. I apologize for that. I think it was just a time zone issue, but we are back. We are on schedule now and we are happy to share with you everything you need to know about Octopus in terms of kicking the tires here. So, Octopus 101 is a basically a presentation or a webinar that is designed to expose you to Octopus Deploy. It's basically there to give you a sense of what's available in Octopus Deploy, how you can use it, why it's there, how it works, etc. And so, the point of this is to provide you with that context. If you have any questions, you can reach me at this email address. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I'd love to hear from you, including if you have any insights that you'd like to share or any scenarios you'd like to discuss. Let me know. I'm happy to discuss those with you. Before we begin, what I would like to do is just share with you a couple of resources here that are available for you to take advantage of. The first and foremost, the first resource we have is, of course, our YouTube channel, which I'm going to attempt to share with you now. Sorry for this. One sec. Let's see if I can add this. Oh, I have a media stream evidently that I am not allowed to share. All right, let me go try this now. That's interesting. I'm trying to use a solution, trying to share a screen here. Try this again. Share screen. Share. All right, doesn't want to let me add it to stage. All right, that's fine. We will move on without it. So we have some resources available that you can use. I'll try and debug this as we talk about this. So we have some resources that you can use, obviously, which are great. Let me just see if I can do it this way. Share screen. Stage. There we go. Awesome. So the first and foremost is our website, which you can find at octopus.com. There you'll see a page that looks like this. You'll be able to download and utilize a free trial if you wish. You can use both the cloud version or you can install this yourself if you wish. Definitely worth checking out there. Another resource we have available is our webinars page. So if you go to octopus.com/webinars, you'll see a page that looks like this. We have a bunch of webinars, including our 101 series, which we run monthly. So you can check it out there. Later on this month, we have our 2025 release party. This is really exciting for us. This is going to be a celebration of the 2025.1 release of Octopus. We'll have a bunch of folks who are in R&D joining us to talk about the latest and greatest features inside of Octopus. Definitely worth checking out there. And then in addition to that, we also have our recap of KubeCon Europe on April 8th. So make sure to check that out. And of course, we have our Argo Unpacked series, which is definitely a great podcast worth checking out as well. In addition to that, we have our YouTube channel. You can see we're live right now. We have a bunch of videos listed there. You can check them out if you want. We post all the time. Great resource for us, along with all the other resources we have available at octopus.com. So make sure to check those out. Awesome. All right, so let's go ahead and set the stage now for what Octopus is and how it works. So in this webinar, you're going to learn a little bit about some terminology. You're going to hear and see some things that maybe you've never seen before, which is fine. But we're going to talk explicitly about what Octopus is and how it works. And more importantly than that, we're going to discuss why you should consider using a tool like Octopus Deploy. Oftentimes when being introduced to a technology, the why question isn't often answered. And so we want to make sure that we address this concern because it's really important to understand where and why Octopus fits in your deployment pipeline. Then we're going to talk about some terminology. As I said before, we're going to hear about terms like deployment processes, projects, etc. These and other terms we use in Octopus to describe the various parts and pieces. At the end of this, it's my hope that you'll have a solid understanding of what Octopus is in terms of these terms, and then be able to relay them and apply them in your own learnings around Octopus. We'll then go right into a demo, and we'll kind of kick the tires of Octopus. We'll show you how to create a pipeline from scratch, deployment process from scratch, and utilize that in the context of environments, deployment targets, etc. And then we'll show you how to integrate your deployment pipeline with a front-end CI process. So CI stands for continuous integration. It's that process that you do as a developer when building and testing your code on a continuous basis. Thus, the name continuous integration. And it's typically the place where a lot of pipelines begin. Now, it doesn't have to be. You can certainly trigger deployments in a number of different means, and we'll show you some examples of that. But that's where we're going to get started. Now, one of the ways in which you can think about where Octopus fits is in your pipeline here. You can think of your developers on the left, your targets on the right. In the middle, somewhere, you've got your CI process. And then slotted next to that is where Octopus Deploy will live. Now, understanding the why behind Octopus Deploy is part of the reason why, or the motivation behind the tool itself. Prior to Octopus Deploy, or even today without Octopus Deploy, you see a lot of DIY continuous delivery. This do-it-yourself sort of process of formulating scripts, managing environments, utilizing RBAC if you can, being able to do an auditing of who did what and why in terms of your deployments. It's a real nightmare. All of this is baked in with Octopus Deploy, so you can utilize this in the context of Octopus Deploy to have a safe and sane environment for managing your deployments, including your projects, your deployment processes, everything that's listed there. Now, one way you can think about this from a 50,000-foot view is, when you think about your architecture, typically you'll have source control in Git, and that will utilize a number of CI processes or servers that are available. That's on the left-hand side there. But then from there, it becomes a bit of a Wild West story, right? You have to manage your own environments. You have to go through the process of provisioning your own tools, maybe setting up environment variables, which also change between environments. It becomes a real nightmare. And this is all independent of your deployment targets, which you also have to manage. So where we like to see Octopus utilized is in that context, is where we replace a lot of that chaos that occurs when managing your own deployments. And so Octopus fits nicely in there and can integrate with a number of solutions that you'll have in your pipeline. And further to that, if looking at this as a explicit case, in this case, GitHub itself. So with GitHub, we have a number of integration points, and this is not independent of GitHub. This is pretty much any CI process. We try and integrate with as many ways in which we can. So with GitHub, we integrate with GitHub Copilot through a custom extension. We also have support for GitHub Actions as well as a GitHub app. So you can utilize those ways of integrating with GitHub and make it available as part of a deployment process. So let's now switch over to a demo and talk a little bit about Octopus itself. We'll see how this works in context of Octopus. All right, so let me jump over now to my environment. So I have Octopus available in a couple flavors here. Let me jump back to my project dashboard. All right, so this is a very simplified instance of Octopus Deploy. If you haven't seen Octopus Deploy, that's fine. That's fine. This is what Octopus looks like. It's basically an environment for managing your deployments. So what we have here is an environment where we have listed at the top here, we have our environments. So we have our development, staging, for example, production environments. And then on the left-hand side here, we have our list of projects. So these are projects that you may establish. Let me go ahead and give you guys more room to see this. I'll just make this more, there you go. That should be a little bit better. All right, so we have our projects listed on the left-hand side. Each one of these projects are basically a representation of parts and pieces of your application. It may be a standalone service. It may be a backend endpoint, for example. It really doesn't matter. You construct these projects yourself and manage them accordingly. Notice in here we have some entities here that show us the state of our deployments. So you can see here we have different versions of our deployments across different environments. If I jump into one of these projects, this is where I can start defining things like my deployment process. So if I went in here, I can define a series of steps that I use to define a deployment process. So a deployment process is really just a collection of steps that we use to make software available to various folks. And you can see here I have a step already listed in this project, which is called run a script. This is arguably our most popular step. A run a script step basically says, give me control. I want to drive myself. I'm going to write a script to control my deployment. Let's go ahead and see how we can expand on this deployment process. So I'm going to click on this button here called add a step. And when I do so, I'm kicked over into the process editor. The process editor is where we will find all your steps that you can use in the context of a deployment process. Notice here we have them categorized by category. So you can see I have here things like featured steps. I have script steps that are for different platforms, for example. I have Kubernetes steps, Docker steps, steps for targeting various cloud native services as well, if I so wish. So AWS, for example. So these and other steps are available for me to use and add to my existing deployment process. If we have a step that is not supported, don't worry. We have over 500 steps that have been built by the community, and these include targets like Argo or Chef or Datadog. These and other different integration points are available for you to use within the confines of your deployment process. So we have a lot of different steps available for you to use, which is great. So let's take a look at some of these steps here. So for example, if I wanted to, I have my script step now integrated. I may want to integrate with Terraform. Well, so let's say I'm using Terraform to manage my infrastructure, and I want to go ahead and apply a template for that. I can add this step here to my deployment process. Notice that it appears underneath my run a script step here. So I have run a script, and then I have to apply Terraform template. In addition to that, I can specify a bunch of other options here. I can make this, for example, a child step. So I can make it a child of the run a script step, or I can have it execute in concert with or at parallel with this run a script. I can have these run at the same time if I so wish. If we take a look at the individual properties for a step, I know it looks a little daunting, but there's lots of knobs and buttons that you can press for the step itself. But these are all the configuration objects you can specify for this individual step. The part that tends to be consistent is this section here called conditions. So this section here basically defines the sort of meta properties or conditions that apply to the step execution itself. So these might be things like how many times I want to retry this step. An example of why you might want to do this is network connectivity can be flaky. You have latency, you have connections that may go up and down. You may want to retry the execution of a step before deeming it to have been a failed step. You may want to specify a timeout. You may want to give a specific allocation of time for the step to run. So you can execute these steps accordingly in certain conditions. The parts and pieces that are relevant to the step itself, in this case, applying a Terraform template, are found at the top. So at the top here, you'll see a section here that allows me to integrate with managed accounts. And I also have a location for my template itself. If you haven't used Terraform before, don't worry. It's basically a command line tool that is provided by HashiCorp, now IBM. And what it allows you to do is basically stand up infrastructure through configuration. Really, really nice. You can define a whole set of properties through configs, and then you run a tool like Terraform to make that configuration come to life. And that's defined inside what's called the templates. So a template source is defined in a language called HCL. It's just a text file. But that text file location can come from any number of sources. So one of the things that we support out of the box with Octopus Deploy is being able to load the sources of things like scripts, templates, other sorts of things from a variety of source locations. So it may be source code that's located inline, it may be an integrated Git repository, or it may come from a package that I've uploaded to Octopus itself. So packages are, again, another term to define, but a package is like a file. It's like a jar file, a zip archive, a NuGet package, whatever it is that containment of deployment in terms of a file system file. That's what we call a package. Now with Octopus, we have a built-in repository that's called a package feed, and a feed basically denotes where you'll get packages from. So packages can be a variety of things. It can be images, it can be zip files, as I said before, and we have a built-in repository with Octopus. But we also understand that a lot of people want to use remote feeds. There are many popular solutions out there. Artifactory, for example. You may want to use a NuGet server, or you may want to use the Maven repository, etc. We provide the ability to build, to integrate feeds within your deployment process itself. So you simply establish a feed type, and we can pull those packages down from those remote locations and incorporate them as part of your deployment process. This turns out to be really nice because you can also trigger events based on these feeds. So if you set up a feed, for example, let's say you set up a Artifactory feed, if and when you update the package, you can automatically trigger a deployment based on changes. So if you want to set that up, you can certainly do so. The whole reason why I mention this is just because we're pretty flexible in terms of where you define these things, whether it's a script file, whether it's a template file, it really doesn't matter. But we provide that mechanism for doing that. If I were to specify just simply source code, for example, I could add it, incorporate it as part of this if I define a TF file for template. That is something I can certainly do. There are many other options that we also expose here, for example, and these are dependent upon the step itself. So the step itself here in terms of this step is for Terraform. So I can define a bunch of things like the workspace, or I can define any plugins that I want to use in concert with the TF or the Terraform CLI. These are other parameters we define for each step. So to give you an example of that, if I were to jump over here to run a script, notice that the options change. So for each and every step, we provide different options. The conditions that I showed you earlier, that remains the same mostly. The way in which these things run don't change. So things like retries, timeouts, etc. But the properties associated with this step, in this case, run a script, those are unique to the step itself. So if we take a look at here, I'm running a PowerShell script. I can change that to any different types of languages that I want. I can also incorporate things like variables. So when we define deployments through a deployment process, we have this concept known as a variable, and variables come in a variety of flavors when it comes to your projects. And variables are there to basically account for the differences that occur between environments. So this is really powerful because having to manage this stuff in like environment variables and things of the like is really, really hard. And so we expose these as structured types that you can use. You can define these yourself as well. And we have a variety of variable types that you can use in terms of your deployment process. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to show you what it looks like to actually do a deployment with a very simple script itself here. So, excuse me. In this example here, I simply have a script that's running, and it's just outputting text to a file. I have kids in school, which means they bring everything home. So I'm just running a slight cough. All right, so you can say here we have a run script. If we go back to our dashboard here, for example, you see we've actually executed this. Let's go ahead and create a release with this. So a release is where we're prepping in a deployment process for a deployment. It provides a snapshot capability. And the reason why this is relevant is because providing a snapshot is really important in terms of doing deployments. You don't want these things changing wildly. You want them static and stable so that you can do things like rollbacks, which is a feature that we support out of the box with Octopus. So I provide a build number here or a version number. We also support Calver as well if you want, or you can use any type of versioning. We will auto increment this as well. We do support semantic versioning as well. So you'll provide a versioning number. And then when you create this snapshot, you'll notice that everything that I have associated with this, if I had packages or if I had get resources or variables, will be associated with this snapshot. Let's go ahead and just deploy this to development. And notice that when I provide this dialog here, we also have the ability of defining when we want this deployment to occur. Do I want it to occur now? Do I want it to occur later? Do I want to give it a different priority? Do I want to exclude any steps as part of this deployment? So even though I've laid out this deployment process, I still, after the fact, have the ability of controlling which steps will run and which steps won't if I so wish. So I can opt out of certain steps. In your deployment process itself, you can mark certain steps to only run in certain environments. So that's a unique feature at Octopus that allows you to have flexible deployment processes as a result. But if you want, you can simply come in here and just say, look, I don't want to run a script if I don't want to. So a lot of other options here I can specify as well. Again, this is just a 101. We're trying to just show you how this works out of the box. Let's go ahead and click deploy. And what this will do is actually execute that deployment. Again, it's a very simple example. It's meant to be simple just to show you how this works. What we're showing here is the task log that's generated for a deployment. So for every deployment, we give you an audit trail of who did what and when and what happened in that deployment. So you can see here, if I want, I can simply turn on verbosity. I can get a detailed list of all the things that are happening here for my deployment. At the end of this deployment, we get a summary log that allows us to see who did the deployment and why, or when, and what happened as a result. So you can see here, this is where it ran. These are the run details, for example. If I take a look at this, I also get a timeline of deployments that have occurred over time. So I get a running list of deployments that occur. So I can see which ones have succeeded, which ones have failed, for example. I can go into the task log. I can take a look at timestamps and categories, etc. There are other options here as well. So if I had any check-ins associated with this, if I had any commits associated with this with a backend repository, I can incorporate this. We call this build information, and build information allows me to roll these up into, a change log if I wanted to. So I can incorporate that as part of a release, which is great. Any changes, any history that goes into here as well. Again, this is a very simple example, but this is what it looks like when utilizing a deployment in the context of a log itself. This log as well will be persisted and saved. You can stream these logs as well for the entire system or for individual projects to an external source. We also have the ability of doing this via a open telemetry. So this is a feature that we've recently shipped as part of Octopus itself. This is now available in 2025.1, and there's lots of ways in which you can support this. By the way, if you want to find out anything about what we're shipping, you can go to our roadmap, which is at roadmap.octopus.com. There you'll see a page that looks like this, which allows you to take a look at the various features that we have shipped. You can see the ones that we've released. You can also take a look at the ones that we have planned, and you can take a look at the ones that we're under consideration. And if you have an idea for a feature, you can submit your own. So it's a great way to get involved in providing some details back to the organization. So we've done a deployment. You've seen the task log. There's a lot of other things we need to show. Let's just take a look at some of them. I don't want to overwhelm you here with too much information, but I'll just show you some of the parts and pieces that may be missing in terms of your thinking with regards to deployments. So we've done a deployment, but where did that deployment go, right? It just kind of went off into the ether and did a deployment. So what we do is we define these deployments in terms of environments, and we map those to deployment targets. The reason why we separate these two is because these are unique to each other in terms of their meaning in Octopus. So when you take a look at how you do a deployment targets are there for you to define and make available through a technology we have called Tentacle. Again, using the Octopus theme. Tentacle is like an agent that you'll install on a remote system, whether that's in the cloud or on-prem, etc. And then it will be there to listen to commands that you want to run via your deployment process. So deployment targets are there to set up. So if we go ahead and add a new deployment target, you can see here out of the box, we support targets for Kubernetes. So you can add an agent or you can target the API. Of course, we recommend the agent. If you're targeting Linux or you're targeting Mac or Windows, we have Tentacle for there. There are two types of tentacle, by the way. There's what's called a listening tentacle and there's a polling tentacle. And the difference between the two is just the way in which they communicate back to Octopus. So listening tentacle is just receiving commands via a well-known port. A polling tentacle calls back to Octopus asking, hey, do you have any work? And the reason why these are set up is so that you can actually have these provisioned and made available ready for running against your various deployment targets. And this is something that you can do ahead of time to set these up and then map them to environments. Environments are a whole different other thing. They allow you to define these categories or names, if you will, whatever terminology you want. You can it's a grouping mechanism for each one of these targets. So I can define any number of environments I want. I can define them, any names that I want, and then have associated tags with those. The reason why this is nice is because using tags or using environment names allows me to give myself a little bit of granularity over the control about how deployment processes execute. So jumping back into my project here, if we take a look at the project I just showed you, which is Hello Octopus, we take a look at the process here. One of the things that I can do is I can actually designate what steps run against what environments. So remember that we just looked at environments and deployment targets. One of the things that we can do is we can define, all right, where do I want this step to run? And I can utilize the various tags that I have there and have them run against those different tags. So if I wanted this step to only run against things like, a tag called Octopus targets, for example, I can do that. But I can also have it run independently of that. I can also specify this to only run in particular environments. So if I wanted to, I could say, actually, I only want this step to run in development. So I can designate this step to run just in that case. Now, you might ask yourself, why would you only want a step to run in a certain environment? Well, there are cases where it might be valuable to have a step run in those instances. So an example might be, let's say you're doing a deployment to production, and that is, a highly important operation. You don't want to get that wrong. And so one of the things you might want to do is, rather than just going and deploying automatically, you may want to utilize a step called a manual intervention. So manual interventions are basically, it's a step that we provide where you have to get a human to approve the deployment from continuing. So manual intervention basically means like go grab someone who is an approver and get them to basically approve this deployment process to continue executing. It's sort of akin to like a breakpoint. If you're a developer and you've used breakpoints before, it just pauses execution. Of course, we're not doing a debug session here, but manual intervention allows you to do that. So the reason why you may want to run that in the case of a particular environment, let's say you're doing this against production, you may want to get let's say you're doing a change to a database, you may want to grab a DBA and say, hey, do you mind just looking at this change set for the schema before we continue? Yep, that all looks good, approve. And that's just in a case for production. So these and other scenarios are definitely useful for us to use in those confines. Awesome. All right, so there was a lot there. I'm going to go back into a demo, so don't worry. But I want to kind of summarize some of the things that we saw in terms of Octopus itself, and kind of give you some highlights. So first and foremost, you saw that we provide you with a visual representation of the deployment process itself. So you can see basically all the steps that are there. And this is useful, especially when using Octopus in a team environment. We have notes that are based on Markdown. And again, this team idea is that, more than one team may be using Octopus, and you want to articulate why these steps are there, what they do. So you can articulate those in these notes. We allow you to do parallel step execution as defined child steps as part of your deployment process, which is great. And of course, you can apply different steps to different environments, which is also great. It gives you a level of control there that is really flexible. All right, so jumping into some of the more reasons why you might want to use Octopus. As I said before, Octopus provides a safe and sane way for you to define your deployments and utilize them in concert with a deployment process. So Octopus is there for you to do your deployments and do it with confidence. So oftentimes in the industry, we talk about don't deploy on Friday, or deployment on Friday has this bad connotation. Things go wrong. No one's there to help troubleshoot. You should be able to deploy on Friday. You should be able to deploy on Saturday. You should be able to deploy on Sunday. This shouldn't be a problem. Deployments shouldn't be an issue for you to do at any day of the week. And so using a tool like Octopus gives you that capability. And the reason why is because it automatically supports rollbacks and other capabilities as well. So these are capabilities built out of the box so that you can do deployments with confidence. So that's one of the motivations for utilizing a tool like Octopus. Another motivation, of course, is we provide the ops in DevOps as well. So a feature I haven't shown you yet is a capability we have called runbooks. And what this allows you to do is execute a bunch of typically, reserved for operations teams tasks as part of your release strategy. So oftentimes when doing deployments, there's things that you want to do. You want to provision infrastructure. Maybe you have to update a database or, reboot a server. I don't know. There's any number of things you may want to do. By defining runbooks, which are similar to deployment processes, it's a series of steps that you run in terms of your ops tasks. You can automate a lot of either the routine and or emergency ops that you have to run as far as your release management strategy goes. So providing this mechanism alongside with your deployment strategies is really, really nice because it gives you control over that. What's really cool about runbooks as well is that you can actually set these up in advance, give them all the necessary keys for doing these types of operations, which are typically high privilege, and then make these runbooks available for members of your ops teams to execute. And they don't need to provide those credentials later on because they're persisted as part of that runbook strategy. And obviously you wrap this around with RBAC, but it gives you a mechanism by which you can do that. And then you get full auditing and tracing capability of who did this step, why did it occur, etc. Through runbooks, which is great. If you're working with containers, we're big fans of this. Of course, we support inline with YAML. We have support for Helm. We have support for Customize. We have Kubernetes steps. We also have our Kubernetes agent as well, which I briefly showed. These and other sorts of integration points with Kubernetes is great. And there's lots of capabilities there. And then finally, and apologies for the rendering of this, a really important capability that a lot of customers who are more mature in their use of Octopus is a feature we have called multi-tenancy. So multi-tenancy is this ability to define a deployment process across tens, thousands of different types of customers without having to duplicate and edit and change each deployment process over and over again. So by defining your application deployment strategy via tenants, it allows you to have consistency across those tenants, but treat each tenant independently. So this is a really powerful capability. In fact, a lot of our customers say this is like the number one feature they love of Octopus when they start using Octopus in a very big way as part of their deployment strategies. It's a really, really great feature. And then finally, and probably something that is seen as, to a lot of folks, oh yeah, I forgot about, I need this as well, is our governance, risk, and compliance. So we, as I showed you earlier, we have an audit trail. You can stream that out to a wide variety of sources. We support open telemetry as well. So if you're streaming out to a provider like Sumo or Splunk or what have you, you can stream to that. But we keep an audit trail of all of those things. And we also have a number of integration points. So two that I listed here, but we have many, many other integration points are things like Jira Service Management or ServiceNow. So the idea being, with ServiceNow, oftentimes you have this notion of what's called a change request. So a change request is typically where you will approve a deployment to occur. And so in that instance, Octopus can serve as at the behest of ServiceNow. So ServiceNow will approve the change request, which will then act as an arbiter to Octopus and say, yep, go ahead and issue this deployment. And so you can use ServiceNow as a control mechanism for Octopus, which is great. And oftentimes that's this is a common scenario we see in organizations where folks want to control downstream operations, and Octopus can participate in that very easily. All right, let's jump into another demo, more hands-on, which is something I always like to do. So let's jump into Octopus itself. Something I didn't show you, but I'd just like to show you here a little contrast. We also support dark mode. I like showing this because I know that people prefer different modes of use, but dark mode is certainly something that we also support. All right, so another scenario that comes up a lot with Octopus is, okay, you've shown me everything in terms of point and click, right? That's very manual, but I'm in an automation context. How do I trigger these deployments to occur when I'm using a CI tool, like let's say GitHub Actions, for example? Well, if you go up to the GitHub Marketplace and you search for Octopus, you'll notice that we have a number of actions listed here out of the box. So GitHub Actions is basically the workhorse of Octopus, of GitHub, and it's the series of steps that you will execute when running workflows in GitHub. So you can see we have a number of actions that are available for you to use. Incidentally, we also have a GitHub app, which you can use here if you wish. This allows you to use Octopus in a more seamless manner and provides some nice capabilities there. And just as sort of a point of completion, we also have an integration point with GitHub Copilot as well. Basically, it allows you to have a chat interface to Octopus if you wish. So looking at a more practical example here, if we jump over to this repo, this is a public repo you can check out yourself. It's called Octo Pet Shop. This is under our Octopus samples org. But if you take a look at this, this is what a typical YAML file might look like. It's .NET, but it could be anything, basically. It doesn't really matter. But here we have a YAML file that defines my build script, in a sense, my tests, etc. So you can see here I'm running the .NET CLI, which allows me to do runs, etc. Oops. And then if we take a look at the bottom here, this is where we will typically integrate with these actions to do steps related to Octopus. So you'll notice here, see if I can zoom this in a little bit. So you'll notice here at the bottom, sorry, I'll just stop scrolling. So here what we're doing is we're utilizing our actions that we have available in the marketplace to push a package. So a package in this case might be an exe or a DLL. It might be a NuGet package. I'm pushing this to Octopus. And then later on, I'm using that package in concert with a deployment process that I've defined in Octopus to create and deploy a release. So I'm creating a release and then using that release as part of a deployment later on. So these and other sorts of actions I can use with a scenario like GitHub Actions. And that provides a really nice mechanism for basically providing an automation context. So these things will execute and run, and you can take a look at the runs. I don't think I have any runs that have run recently. Just take a look here quickly. Sorry, no, we haven't had anything execute logly in a while. So if you haven't had any runs recently or haven't had any runs at all, you will see them. But you'll see the same dialogue you saw previously. with the run inside of Octopus. So here you'll see, an audit trail, much akin to what you saw in Octopus. So you'll see that execute in terms of GitHub. If you're looking at other solutions as well, we integrate with Azure DevOps. Just as another example, we integrate with a ton of CI solutions out there, so it's definitely worth checking out. So here's an example of what this would look like in Azure DevOps. In this case, this is Azure Pipelines. This is the legacy interface. Obviously, they're more slanted towards the YAML side of things now, but this gives you a sense of how you can integrate directly with Octopus through that. If you're using things like JetBrains, TeamCity, you can use TeamCity in concert with Octopus Deploy. In fact, our integration is the #1 plugin on the JetBrains marketplace for TeamCity. So TeamCity and Octopus is a sort of peanut butter and chocolate combination for a lot of folks out there. So they like using the two in terms of those. So once you have these integrated and utilizing in that scenario, you'll be able to set up your automation context very, very easily, and you'll be able to automate these very, very quickly. We have a full-fledged API that you can also use as well. And if you want, you can utilize our CLI as well. So just by way of an example here, this is our CLI that we have available. Allows you, of course, no CLI would be complete without a cool ASCII art representation of the logo. But this CLI allows you to perform a number of commands against Octopus that allows you to perform commands like, manage a runbook, create a channel, establish users and tenants, things like that. So using this CLI, I can interface with Octopus directly if I so wish. So there's lots of different scenarios upon which I can actually interface with Octopus, and either through an automation context or a manual context. Awesome. All right, that is your introduction to Octopus. Congratulations, you made it. So what you saw in this webinar is we talked about how Octopus works and why you should consider using it. We talked about some of the fundamentals like projects, deployment processes, releases, and the like. Obviously, there's lots of terminology I've thrown at you. Don't worry, we articulate all of this in our demos, in our videos, in our docs. It's all listed there. You can check it out yourself. And in addition to that, when you run your own demo instance, you can set yourself up very quickly. Go to octopus.com, sign up for a free trial. Along the side, we have a help context menu that will explain each and every term that you see listed in the UI itself. So it's very easy to get started. The other thing that we do is we provide a really great first run experience. I showed you how to create a deployment process from scratch in some cases, or you can look at more elaborate examples. There are many listed on that samples instance I was using earlier. That is a public instance, by the way. So you can take a look at our samples instance. We reference it throughout our docs. So you'll be able to basically kick the tires yourself. But a deployment process, remember, is a series of steps that you execute to do a deployment. There's concepts in there like tags and environments, etc. Once you start getting comfortable with Octopus, you'll start to understand the reasoning for some of these things, and you'll be able to take a look at each individual step and control its conditions, for example. And then finally, we wrapped up quickly by showing you how you might do this through an automation context, specifically through integration with a CI process or server. And I showed you GitHub Actions there, but there are many other solutions out there. BuildKite, Circle CI, Jenkins, etc. Any one of these CI processes we integrate with very easily, and you can use in an automation context, which is awesome. So our recommendation is to use Octopus in that context. So there you go. Half an hour, roughly, of everything you need to know about Octopus. Here's some links that you can check out. Don't forget, we've got our YouTube channel, which is at youtube.com/octopusdeploy. We publish there almost daily at this point. We have a bunch of videos that you can check out there. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and let me know. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. All right, so we have some questions here that we'll go ahead and take a look at. Let's take a look at this one. Is there a free course that goes into more depth? Absolutely. In fact, we actually have a number of YouTube videos that you can check out. So if you jump over to our channel here, let me just quickly show you here. Add to stage. Oops. Say remove. Add to stage. There we go. All right. So if you take a look at our Octopus Deploy channel and you go to our playlists, you'll see we have a number of playlists. We have a ton of different playlists you can check out to get started. We have everything from installing and managing Octopus to utilizing Octopus. There's a whole getting started series that we have available for you to check out. These are all available for free. They're available up on YouTube. Go check them out. Run them at 2 times speed if you find them to be too slow. There's lots of available videos available there. We also have a ton of other videos as well. You can see we publish almost daily at this point, and we cover a wide breadth of topics, so make sure to check those out. In terms of courses, there is a course available up on Pluralsight that you can also check out if you so wish. So that is available for you to take a look. We have a number of different resources you can also check out that are available for free. If you're not a fan of the video format, that's fine. We actually have a number of really great publications here. This is just me tap dancing while I load the page. So if you go to octopus.com/publications, we have a number of books that we've published. This is a great one called Exploring Octopus Deploy by Steve Fenton. This one is a lot of great tips and tricks around utilizing Octopus that you can check out. You can download the free PDF if you wish, or you can you can purchase a hardcover copy of this through Amazon. We have another book here from Matt Casperson entitled DevX as a Service, if you're interested in that. We also have white papers. These are related to Kubernetes. We have modern deployment and rollback strategies, another white paper available. A lot of these are in the context of Octopus Deploy. Again, more resources for you to use. These are free resources that we provide if you're not a fan of the video variety. So you can check that out. We have a whole list of resources up on our site. You can see those are the publications I listed earlier. But we have webinars, we have blogs, we have we have pretty much anything you could want to start your learning journey around this. So definitely worth checking out there. Great. All right, thank you for your question. I'm just looking here at our list of questions, not seeing any. Again, apologies for the different start time. I think time zones became a factor here. I do apologize for that. I saw some comments here where people were like, I thought it was starting. So apologies for that. I'm not seeing any other questions. All right. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. All right. I'm just going to leave you with a couple of resources here. So don't forget that we actually have our webinar series listed here. This will be updated today. We run these Octopus 101s monthly. So if you want to jump in on another one, feel free. We'll be adding our list of webinars for April. We have our release party. I would love to see you there. If you want to find out everything that's happening relative to Octopus coming up, this would be a great webinar for you to attend. It's on March 25th. These are the right times here. And so we would love to see you there. This is a great sort of way in which to get exposed to Octopus. And you can take a look. You can take a look at what's available there, and take a look and participate in the party. We have a bunch of other webinars as well, which are coming up. There's another question here. Okay to message you on LinkedIn? Absolutely. Yeah, hit me up. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know if you have any questions. Not a problem. Of course. Why wouldn't I be okay? That's awesome. Love to hear from you. All right, not seeing any other questions. Great. Well, that wraps up another Octopus 101. Really appreciate your time and attention. Obviously, a lot to take in, but sign up for a free trial today at octopus.com. You can provision this either locally. You can set this up yourself locally, or you can establish a cloud instance. I'd really recommend setting up a cloud instance. It's the easiest way to go. You're up and running within 5 minutes. But set this up, or if you want, you can check out that samples instance I showed you earlier to get started. Kick the tires yourself, get to know the tool, and see where this can fit in your deployment pipelines. We would really love to encourage you to take a look at this, because obviously being able to deploy on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, that should be the reality. It shouldn't be something we should be afraid of. Anyways, from all of us here at Octopus to you, thank you very much for your time and attention. Really appreciate it. Until next time, happy deployments, everyone. Take care.